Good afternoon. Please welcome the president of Queens College, Frank Wu, Representative Grace Meng, the executive director of the Asian American Federation, Joanne Yu, the executive vice president of the New York Board of Rabbis, Rabbi Joe Potensnik, Queens Borough President Donovan Richards, Senator Toby Stavisky, Assembly Member Neely Razik, Assembly Member Dan Rosenthal, and please join me in welcoming the 57th Governor of the great state of New York, Kathy Hochul.
Friends, welcome back. Welcome back to our beautiful campus. Welcome back especially, Governor Hochul, to Queens College of the City University of New York, led by my esteemed boss, Chancellor Felix V. Matos Rodriguez, represented today by his Chief of Staff, Glenda Grace. Welcome to all of the elected officials, community leaders, and media to the College of the Future, the site of our new business school and School of Arts. When you visited us before, Governor, it was always on an important occasion that focused on key issues such as protecting the environment and promoting alternative energy. Today, you're here because hate crimes are on the rise in New York and in the nation. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and families of those injured in yesterday's terrible shooting incident. I'd like to acknowledge leaders from the following organizations who are joining us: APAPA New York, the Sikh Coalition, the Jain Center, the Korean Community Service Center, the Korean American Family Service Center, CCBA, the Korean American Association of Greater New York, the Flushing Chinese Business Association, the New York Chinese Chamber of Commerce, the Chinese Business Association of New York, KAIPA, Concerned Citizenship of East Broadway, the Asian American Community Civilian Patrol, Flushing United, the Korean American Association of Queens, Agudath Israel, Flatbush Jewish Community Coalition, JCRC New York, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, the American Jewish Committee, Shimi Pellman, the Queens Jewish Alliance, Hatzalah, Stand With Us, and the UJA Federation. Governor Hochul, you've made it such a high priority to confront hate through investments in the state budget, through public safety reforms, and through community security grants. As our Chancellor of the CUNY system has publicly stated, we want to thank you especially on this occasion for your staunch support for public higher education, the engine of the American dream. This enables colleges such as Queens College to prepare leaders committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to stop that virus of bigotry, anti-Semitism, and discrimination from infecting our great community here in the world's borough. I met Governor Hochul a year ago in downtown Flushing when she led off a rally against all of the hate that we've seen during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that gave me hope to see the wide array of elected leaders there on that occasion. Governor Hochul began her career in public service on her local town board, serving as the Erie County Clerk, and then as a member of the United States Congress, and finally as Lieutenant Governor before assuming her present role. Since being sworn into office, Governor Hochul's confronted the pandemic head-on to prepare for our great post-pandemic future. She has worked with the legislature to craft a budget that invests in public safety, clean energy, affordable housing, public higher education, and which strengthens the healthcare system we all depend on. Born and raised in Western New York, Governor Hochul and her husband are the proud parents of 2 children. Please join me in welcoming to the podium the 57th and the first female governor of the great state of New York, Kathy Hochul. Thank you for being here.
Great to be here, and Mr. President, thank you for such a warm welcome, and what an authoritative voice he has. That's a voice for radio and being president of a college. Can we agree with that? So great to see you again, Frank, and to make us feel welcome on this spectacular campus, and to the students who've joined us. I know there are a number of students here as well, and I want to thank them for joining us, high school students. I want to acknowledge some of the people in the audience before I tell you why I'm here and what's really in my heart. And first of all, to our Congresswoman, Grace Meng. She has spoken up on behalf of the people of her community, all communities who face discrimination and hatred, so eloquently on the floor of the United States Congress. She is a champion and advocate for everyone. Let's give a huge round of applause to my friend, Grace Meng. Our borough president, who is so proud to represent the most diverse place, I think, on the planet. If not, I'm going to declare it, okay? Donovan Richards, great friend and ally as well. And a Senator, Toby Savitsky, who I got to know way back in 2014 at many rallies, and she took me to meet the individuals in her district, the small business owners who were suffering even back then, and she's a great champion for our businesses as well as our community. Senator Toby Savitsky. Assemblymember Neely Rosick and Assemblymember Dan Rosenthal. I'm sorry the budget is a little late, but it's definitely worth it. But you are great champions for both of your communities as well, and I want to thank you, Assembly members, for the work that you do, as well as we have Rabbi Joe Potasnik, the New York Board of Rabbis, who is at every significant event in the city. I see him more than I see my husband because he is everywhere. I don't know if you've heard this, Rabbi, but my husband actually says the only difference between me and God is everywhere. I'm everywhere but home. So that's pretty much an accurate statement. So great to see Rabbi. And of course, a true champion for the Asian community, someone I've met under good circumstances and very painful circumstances, and that is Joanne Yu, the Executive Director of the Asian American Federation. So, and you'll have a chance to hear from these great individuals. We continue this rally of hope. Yes, we use the word hate, but to me, this is a rally of hope. It's a rally that shows our true values as New Yorkers, that we wear them out there. And it's not just for us. It's for little girls, like this young woman in the front. What's her name? Young little girl? What's her name? Hi, sweetheart. Look at her End Asian Violence sign. I want her to grow up in a world where she'll look back at pictures of this event and say, what was that all about? Because I never experienced that in my life going forward. My children never do experience this going forward. That is the New York that we are striving for, so little girls like this can grow up in a hate-free state and hate-free country. So it is amazing to be here to see New Yorkers of every race, gender, religion, ethnicity, sexuality, all in solidarity against hate. And this is what New York looks like. Look out the audience. This is New York. This is New York at its greatest. And this sends a message across the United States that we embrace our diversity. This is what makes us so fascinating. This is why we're such a beacon of hope to people from all over the world, because we can live in coexistence peacefully and stand together. When one community is under attack, we stand united and we stand strong. And that is what's going on here today. And that's why I'm so proud to be your governor. And say, when we see acts of hate, it hurts all of us as human beings. It doesn't matter the victim. These are all children of our state, people of our state, and we care about them deeply. So many of our neighbors have been attacked or degraded simply for the act of walking down a street, being on a subway, worshiping in a synagogue, going to school in a yeshiva, going out to just conduct their everyday lives. Too many of our Jewish brothers have had to suffer the indignity of torment or being spit upon just by wearing a yarmulke. And I think about when I went to a yeshiva about a year ago, and there had just been an attack on one of the streets, and a young boy came up to me he says, my friend said maybe I shouldn't wear my yarmulke. Maybe I shouldn't wear this because that means people will target me and attack me. And I said, no, my son. You wear that with pride because your ancestors never gave up. They never forgot. And that is a strength that you wear for the rest of your life, a statement that you will not bow to hatred. And then I think about other families that have suffered, victims of crimes. I had to go to a hospital last night. I spent about the longest embrace I've ever had in my life, and that includes my own children. There was a woman who was waiting to hear word the outcome of her son's surgery. A Chinese woman, didn't know a word of English, and she had sat there alone all day in the hospital, not sure what happened to her son, who was simply on his way to school yesterday on the subway. And I walked in, and she was sweating. She was still wearing the heavy coat that she had worn in the morning, never even had a chance to take it off. She was just sitting there in the waiting room all alone. And she cried, and we had a translator, and I hugged her. And then she squeezed me back, and she wouldn't let go of me because this woman was in such pain. It was real, it was raw, and it broke my heart as I stood there. And through a translator, she says, I'm all alone. All I have is my son. If anything happens to my son, I have nothing. And then she even said she had just lost her job as a home health care aide. She said, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know if my son's going to make it. I brought the doctor in. The doctor consoled her, said, your son's going to be okay. It was a wound to his thumb, and he's going to heal it. He's going to be okay. But we're all human beings. Someone else's pain we absorb as our own. Whether it's an act of anti-Semitism, anti-Asian hate, it happens to our Black and brown communities more often, our LGBTQ community, suffering indignities, under assault in other states, simply wanting to live their lives. My God, what have we come to? But then I come here, and I see all of you committed to changing that, giving up your time today to sit here and stand here as we shout, there is no hate in our state. This is over, my friends. We are standing up against hatred and bigotry and anti-Semitism and racism and sexism. We are standing up against it because we are New York. We are New York, and we will continue to stand up against it. And more than just talk about it, I'm going to talk to you about what action is all about, okay? Let's talk about where I have some real control, along with our very thoughtful legislators who wanted this to happen as well. And I thank them again for their leadership in our state legislature. So we used the budget, the New York State budget, as a document that reflects our priorities as New Yorkers. And where we put our money shows who we're fighting for. And let me give you some numbers, because you're going to like these numbers, my friends. First of all, we're expanding benefits for victims of hate crimes. At one time, it was $500. Been that number since 1994. I think the cost of living has gone up a little since then. It's gone up in the last month. We increased that to $2,500 for victims to be compensated. We also, with a lot of discussion and debate and a lot of give and take, we expanded arrest eligibility for hate crimes because that was not covered before. We also have to secure the infrastructure. Infrastructure, what does that mean? It means security cameras. It means protection. It means identifying our vulnerable locations. So we are allocating $25 million for Communities Against Hate crime grants. And today, I'm not naming the organizations because they need to have their security protected. But of that, we're allocating $16 million today, and you'll be notified if you're one of those recipients. 80% of which is going toward the Jewish community. We have $20 million directly for the Asian American communities, $10 million for hate crimes, $10 million for additional social services so we can help people heal. Let's focus on them. So we'll see what happens. These are investments to protect our vulnerable venues, especially as we enter the beautiful time of Passover, and people come together and gather. And as we did during the Lunar New Year celebrations, as we had a chance to be there and celebrate. So I'm just going to say one more thing. We can do this. You know we can do this. We can go forth from here today and start to change the hearts and minds of other New Yorkers by our example. By our example. We lead fearless from here. I come from a tough part of our state, I got to tell you right now. I'm used to a good fight if anybody ever questions the spirit in me. And when anyone attacks a fellow New Yorker, any one of my 20 million family members, they're attacking me personally. And I don't like to be attacked. I'm coming after them. I'm going to continue to work with our law enforcement. Our district attorney, Melinda Katz, couldn't be here today, but she wanted to be here. She's here in spirit, as well as all of our members of law enforcement who are helping protect our individuals in our streets. So, are we ready to end hate in the state of New York? Are you ready to stand up against hate? Are you ready to stand up against anti-Semitism? Are you ready to stand against bigotry? Are you ready to stand up for New Yorkers? Let's do this, my friend. Hate has no place in our home. Hate has no place in our state. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Well, breaking news. There are reports that the suspect has been arrested. The NYPD is providing a briefing soon, and we are so deeply grateful to the law enforcement members that I saw yesterday afternoon, and then after I took a subway ride because I wanted to show we are not afraid to take our subway. I did that last night, and I went to the hospital. I want to thank the first responders, NYPD, FDNY, the MTA workers who are so brave and so courageous, and also the medical teams at the local hospitals for doing what they did. They literally saved people's lives. So, if this is the case, this is a beautiful day for New York. We begin to heal, we turn the page, and say no more hate in our state, ever. Grace Meng, our great member of Congress. Let's give it up for Grace Meng and welcome her to the podium.
Thank you so much to Governor Hochul for coming to our district and to our great borough once again. Thank you to Queens College, to President Wu for your leadership, and to everyone part of the CUNY family for the great work that you do on behalf of so many of our families here in Queens. I am especially grateful to Governor Hochul because this is not the first time that she's at Queens College or in our neighborhood and district or in Queens. Governor Hochul has literally been in this exact neighborhood as she comforted families who lost their homes, literally washing shoes and clothes with some of our neighbors who suffered the most after Hurricane Ida. She's been here to rally with us and stood with us as we paid respect to folks that we lost, from hate crimes to the flooding. And not only has she been there for us when the cameras are there and when the microphones are on, but she's always there for us even behind the scenes when there are no cameras and there are no microphones present. She's always there for us, and we are incredibly grateful as a community because she's always showing up, always calling so many of us throughout all of the good times and the bad. She's not just showing up during election year when there are cameras present, and so we are incredibly grateful for her, especially throughout the last few months and years as so many of our shared communities have been so afraid and so scared, literally fearful to open their front doors and leave their homes and to go on to public transportation. Just in the last few days and weeks, we have seen anti-Semitic incidents from Long Island to Brooklyn, to New Jersey, and unfortunately, the numbers keep rising. Just in the last few days, we have seen at least 2 Sikh American people attacked right here in Richmond Hill in our home borough of Queens. People who were literally either visiting the United States or people who were just worshiping and spending time with loved ones and neighbors. And we have also spent time together in the last few weeks comforting the families of those we lost to anti-Asian hate, discrimination, and violence. I've sat down and spent time with the families of Michelle Go, of victims like Wei Ma, and even the Korean grandma who was attacked and then saved by local Elmhurst pizzeria owners. I mean, these are heroic and tragic stories coming right out of our home county of Queens. And I know that people are scared, and I thank the governor and her team for always listening and for always being responsive. From safety issues in the subway to an increase in gun violence and the ongoing mental health crisis across our country, our community needs and deserves so much more. I'm grateful to the governor for continuing to prioritize public safety and make investments in critical resources that will help address compounding issues before someone is actually in crisis. The budget includes strengthening the legal ramifications for perpetrators of hate crimes by making hate crimes an arrestable offense instead of resulting in just a ticket. The budget also provides a necessary investment to help get guns off of our streets, out of our neighborhoods, and strengthen the prosecution of gun trafficking in our home state of New York. These are important and necessary actions to curb discrimination and violence that we have seen here in our state. But we must remember, progress is not always fast. We are often impatient. And there is no magic pill to address these problems. Issues of public safety, mental illness, and the factors driving anti-Asian hate are multifaceted. Oftentimes, we are still recovering from the target that was put on our backs by leaders of our nation who used irresponsible language. I'm grateful to President Biden and his administration for signing my hate crimes legislation into law a few months ago. And and many of you, just like me, are impatient at the pace of the implementation of this legislation. And so we are working closely with the administration as it continues to be implemented. But I want to take a moment in relation to that bill to talk about the solidarity, because one of the good things that has come out of these last few years of rising hate is the solidarity that we have seen amongst different communities right here in Queens and throughout New York. We often live in diverse areas here in New York, but to be honest with ourselves, we don't always take advantage of most opportunities to work together and to learn about each other's contributions and trauma and sacrifices and figure out ways how we can more effectively leverage what we have already achieved to make our communities more whole and safer. And so I wanted to thank so many community leaders, some of who are in the room today, and I know better than to name actual names because I know I will miss people. But from the beginning of when our AAPI community was dealing with the rise of anti-Asian hate, there were leaders from the Black community right here in Queens, throughout the city and throughout the country who came to our rallies and who stood by our sides. Leaders in the Jewish community were amongst the first to reach out to me and so many others in the AAPI community to give us guidance and to share already existing resources on helping us to pass legislation and to make sure that we were taking the right course to keep our communities safe. Leaders in the Muslim, LGBTQ community came to us and said, we know and we feel, we know what discrimination looks like, and we share your pain, and we want to stand in solidarity with all of you. And so as we feel this pain, let us remember the successes and the achievements that have come out of these 2 years. I'm totally going off script. Many of us have been in quarantine for so long, and I'm just so grateful to be here with all of you. But anyway, we have to look for multifaceted solutions. It's not going to be solved overnight. Social infrastructure like mental health resources in our hospitals, our emergency rooms, there is a gap. And for those who are experiencing homelessness that don't regularly visit a doctor or a hospital, has to be part of that multifaceted approach. And so rest assured, I am fighting in Congress to strengthen federal funding to combat hate crimes, to promote supportive services for people experiencing homelessness, and ensure that our community has the necessary mental health illness professionals in all of our communities. We also must work to make sure that our local community centers have mental health professionals who can deliver care in a culturally competent and linguistically accessible manner. So I just want to say a special thank you to my colleagues in the city and state, especially the ones from Albany who I know spent many sleepless nights over the last few weeks, to our borough president, and of course to our great governor, Kathy Hochul. Welcome back to Queens.
Please welcome to the podium, Joanne Yu.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I too, like Grace, it's really hard to recognize anybody if you're not in a little square box and or if you have a mask, so I can't, but it is good to see all of you here. It's a wonderful day, Governor. Thank you so much for all the conversations. Grace was talking about how the governor is always there for us when the cameras are not on, and I was thinking, I don't remember ever being in an event where the camera was on. We've always had some great conversations about our community when everything was off the record, and I am very, very grateful for all of your commitments to our community, not just to the Asian American community, but to New York. Everybody knows hate crimes in our state continues to rise. Last week, I had the privilege of meeting with the grantees of our Hope Against Hate campaign that Governor Hochul made possible by a $3.3 million grant. She became governor, and like magic, poof, a couple days later, there was money and we're ready to go. And so we celebrated the start of that work to build safety programs and community education in our community. And Governor, thank you so much for that investment. Yesterday, when the news broke about the subway shooting, I'm going to tell you that every Asian American held our breath, praying that it was not an anti-Asian attack. Then we also heard the attack on the 2 Sikh brothers in Richmond Hill. This is how our community is living these days, by holding our breath whenever we hear of violence. And I'm going to tell you, this is a really sad way to live, and this is not living. We are grateful for the new investment Governor Hochul has allocated so we can continue our work and get support to nonprofits, houses of worship, civic organizations, and other community institutions through the Securing Communities Against Hate Crimes program. I know that I may be pushing my members to take advantage, certainly. We do need some security in place, and we need to think about security cameras. These are things that we never thought about because we never got funding for infrastructure, and here we are. Thank you, Governor. New York City leads the country in the most number of anti-Asian hate attacks. This is not a number we should be proud of. But by these investments, we have the resources to fight racism and rising violence to keep all New Yorkers safe. I agree with the governor. In all of the press releases, she said, enough is enough, and I think this is where we need to make our stand. Thank you, Governor Hochul. Thank you.
Please welcome to the podium, Rabbi Joe Potasnik.
Thank you so much, Governor. I know that when you see a member of the clergy coming up to speak, your concern is not what is he or she going to say, but how long is he or she going to take to say it. Let me tell you that In my synagogue, I speak for precisely 18 minutes every Sabbath, never 17 or 19, always 18, because it takes me 18 minutes to walk from my house to the synagogue. Every moment as I am walking, I prepare the sermon. So the length is determined from where I am coming from to where I have to be. I came here from Manhattan. The traffic was rather heavy, but I assure you I will adhere to your time concerns. And President Donovan, what a program you have with NYPD here in Queens. If any of you parked illegally, NYPD has a parking valet program here. They'll park the car for you. You can pick it up later on at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Thank you so much, President Donovan. Some years ago, following the hateful attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Rabbi Myers stood up and said to everyone, when we said never again after the Holocaust, we didn't put a question mark after that phrase. We put an exclamation mark. When hate mongers marched in Charlottesville, saying Jews will not replace us, a group of Christians formed a protective perimeter around the synagogue and said to that group, you want them? You got to go through us. Congresswoman Meng, when there was an attack in Chinatown, many of us, I see Reverend Breyer is here of the Interfaith Center, Reverend Lynch of the Buddhist Council, we all walked together. We said to the members of the AAPI communities, you belong to us. We may have different faiths, but we are one family, because we know you scratch the skin of an anti-Semite and you'll find a racist. We know that anti-Semitism is anti-Christianity, is anti-Islam, is anti-all of the other faiths that we have in our world. Let me tell you, this is the season of the broken and the whole. You look at Good Friday and Easter. You look at Passover, broken matzah next to whole matzah. And I think the message for all of us is we may not be able to heal all of the broken, but we have a responsibility as one family to help all of the broken. So, Governor, thank you. Thank you for providing all of that strength and support to communities that are hurting so deeply. And thank you for standing strong when it comes to hate crimes. Outside the Student Union building, there's a big sign that I saw with different expressions in different languages, and under it says, "We learn." And I would suggest, President Wu, that we as clergy need to have a greater presence in classrooms. I think if young people are to learn about respect for one another, they have to see respect for one another. If they want to see love your neighbor, we have to show them how we do love one another. It's not enough to hear a sermon, you have to see a sermon. So let me tell all of you that years ago, some of you may remember, we had a magazine called Life. Remember that? After that, we had a magazine called People. After that, we had a magazine called Us. After that, we had a magazine called Self. Life, People, Self, Us. But we Jews read from right to left. So first, it may be about self. But ultimately, as we see here today and say here every day, it's about all of us as one people who have to make life meaningful with dignity and decency for all people. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the podium Queens County District Attorney Melinda Katz.
Good afternoon. Apologies for sneaking in a little late. We had pickup time at the elementary school as well at the same time, and priorities, so I didn't want to leave my 10-year-old on the street. So I do apologize for that. We are in the Borough of Queens County. We are 190 languages. We are 200 countries. We are the most diverse area on the planet. And why is that important? Because we don't just tolerate other people's religion and ethnic background, we revel in it, we take pride in it. Our diversity is the gift that we give the rest of the United States of America. We are proud of it every single day. And when a hate crime happens against one of the individuals who chose to make Queens their home, when a hate crime happens because of someone's religion, because they're wearing a kippah, because they're wearing a hijab, because they choose to wear a turban, because they have a cross on their neck, or because they're part of the Asian community that is such an unbelievable part of our great borough, then we all stand together. And you look at the room, I heard the governor say before, because I was watching, that look at this room, the diversity really reflects what Queens County has to offer, but most importantly, it presents this state. And so I am so proud to be here today as we acknowledge the work that the governor of the state of New York and that the legislature has done by coming together and understanding a few principles, which is that you can have fairness and equity and still have safety on the streets, that we can take pride in our religion and the way we pray, and make sure that other people don't take advantage of that. And it doesn't have to always be a hate crime. It could just be that they're targets. And we all stand together to make sure that that doesn't happen in our borough. But it takes a leader. It takes a leader in today's world to be able to be in Albany, to be able to bring the so many facets of this great state together from so many counties in the state of New York, to be able to come up with a plan to hold people accountable for the hate crimes, to make sure that the tools are given to the police and to the district attorneys to hold people accountable, but at the same time put money in the security of our religious institutions. We've been asking for that for decades. We need security in our institutions of worship, and this governor provided it, and I thank you, Governor Hochul, on behalf of Queens County for providing that. So we have to combat hate in every way. We now have the tools to better hold people accountable in the criminal justice system. But we need education. We need the money for our facilities. We need to make sure that when congregants go to pray and wherever they choose to pray, that they can walk in those doors and maybe one day not have security standing in that door asking them for identification so that they can enter a place of worship that should be open to everyone who wants to pray there. And that is such an unbelievable gift that you have given us. So I thank you on behalf of the borough. I thank you on behalf of the state of New York. It was not easy in Albany. We understand that. We also understand that all houses and the governor are just fighting for our constituents and their constituents. Brought it all together, and it happened in this budget. So thank you very much, Governor.
Please welcome to the podium Borough President Donovan Richards.
Thank you, and great to be here this afternoon and have a long-standing joke with the governor. I know she likes to claim she's from Buffalo, but we claim her in Queens because she's in Queens just as much as she's probably in Buffalo. So we just want to thank you for your friendship and partnership. And of course, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to this incredible college. Thank you, Frank Wu, who's been really a steadfast leader on so many fronts. Thank you. Let's give Frank a round of applause. And I encourage each and every one of you to take a walk around this campus this afternoon, and you'll see that Queens College is the embodiment of the borough that it calls home. We have students from every walk of life in every corner of the globe here. You'll hear dozens of languages. You'll meet people of all different religions, gender, identities, sexual orientations, and more. It's a microcosm of who we are as the world's borough, the most diverse and dynamic place on the planet, and I'm not shy to say it. And for the most part, we all live as one Queens community, united by all that we have in common. But as we've just seen in the last few weeks, there are some people who apparently have a problem with that kind of unparalleled diversity. There are those people who have a problem with what we've built here and continue to build in Queens County. There are people who choose to attack Sikh individuals for simply walking down the streets of Richmond Hill while wearing their religious garb. There are people who have attacked our Asian neighbors, our Jewish neighbors, our Muslim neighbors, black neighbors, and our LGBTQ neighbors for no other reason than their hatred for those who do not look like them, who don't pray like them, who don't love like them. Here in Queens, we fully believe that an attack on one of us is an attack on each and every one of us. And that is why time and time again, we stood on the steps of Queensborough Hall with many leaders in this room and electeds as one community to stand in solidarity for those who have felt the sting of hatred and injustice. But honestly, I'm sick of repeating that process again and again, knowing we'll be right back on the steps a few weeks later to uplift yet another individual targeted by bigotry. I know Governor Hochul and our elected partners also feel sick doing it too. So I want to applaud the governor for not only announcing these investments today, but for always being an ally and ensuring her administration leaves no stone unturned to help combat hate crimes in our state. And I also appreciate that she understands that law enforcement is not the sole solution, that she's investing in true programming to assist us as well. We need to do better to support victims of hate crimes after they've been targeted. It's not good enough to simply say, let's denounce the crime. We need to ensure survivors have the resources and services they need to not just physically recover, but mentally and emotionally recover as well. And I thank the governor for recognizing this. But we must also, as our DA said, hold those perpetrators accountable, because in Queens County, if you feel that you can put your hands on someone because they don't look like you, you must be held accountable. To Senator Schumer and Congresswoman Ming, we are eternally grateful for your efforts in D.C. to get the hate crimes bill passed and signed into law this year. We need the federal government to fully enforce that legislation, and we need to partner to ensure that that happens. We will not rest until all 2.4 million people of this borough are able to walk down our streets, take mass transit, or worship without fear of being hate's next target. And until that day comes, Queens will continue to stand against hatred in all its forms. Queens will continue to proudly embrace its title as the world's borough, where half of us were born somewhere other than the United States of America. And Queens will continue to love, support, and protect one another in every single way imaginable. While there is no vaccine that can cure hate, we are the solution in this room. We might have all come here on different boats, but we're all in the same ship. We are United States citizens. We are United States of America. We are not the divided states of America. We are the United States of America. We all are just as American as any one of us who either migrated here or who were born here. God bless you all.
Please welcome to the podium Senator Toby Stavisky.
We work together. Thank you. Governor, welcome home. I may be the representative for this community, but I chair the Committee on Higher Education in Albany, and I really must thank you for your help. I think this budget, particularly as it pertains to higher education, was really remarkable, and it was the opportunity for the Assembly and the Senate and the governor to demonstrate that working together, we can accomplish great things. And it's appreciated by, really by everybody. It was said that you are from Buffalo, and obviously you've spent a lot of time in Queens, but we should note that the name for the city of Buffalo is the city of Queens, if I'm not mistaken. And that is the connection that we have. The governor has been here many times, marched in the Lunar New Year parade repeatedly, year after year. But I was particularly struck by what Congresswoman Meng described, right after Hurricane Ida, it was just before the Jewish New Year last year. And she came to that street, that little side street off Booth Memorial Avenue, and we watched a child sitting on a little stool at a table with her mother, washing her shoes. Child was probably maybe 4 or 5 years old at most, and it had such an indelible memory. And to see the governor sit down or kneel down with the child and talk to the child who spoke no English. In fact, I don't remember who the translator was, but this was a bonding experience and demonstrated how we care about each other. Today, we're here and we keep using the word solidarity with our friends in the Asian, Jewish, Black, Latino, LGBTQ, and those who are in need. And we speak, as the borough president said, with one voice. On Friday, as the Jewish people throughout the world observe Passover, which tells the story of the escape from slavery in the land of Egypt, we are reminded that the struggle continues. The struggle is not over. The community faces hate on a regular basis. The Asian American community also continues to fight racism, bigotry, and injustice. People do not realize that unemployment in the Asian American community is rampant. People are facing food insecurity, housing insecurity, and the highest poverty rate is in the Asian American community. And yet we come together because one of the ways to solve this issue is in the budget that the governor described. And we are grateful, and I think we come together also with the idea of hope and opportunity for everybody. Thank you.
Please welcome to the podium Assemblymember Neely Rozek.
Thank you so much, Governor Hochul. It's an honor to be here with you and with all of my colleagues in government, CBOs, nonprofits, different organizations, and all of the students from Queens College announcing another round of funding. This is number 7, another round of funding and additional protections to keep Queens safe. I remember we gathered only a few months ago at the Museum for Jewish Heritage to call for these actions. And since then, it has become harder and harder for all of our communities that are suffering, whether you're a Jewish American kid getting spat on the sidewalk, an Asian American murdered on a train, a member of the Sikh community that was mentioned before, scared to walk down the street, or even a student here on campus going to class and discovering a swastika etched into the classroom. People are scared and people need help. This is no time for symbolic gestures. This is a time for real change, and you know that. And there's a long tradition, not a rabbi, so bear with me, but there's a long tradition that says it's not your responsibility to finish the work of perfecting the world, but you're not free to desist from it either. Kathy Hochul knows this. She lives it, she breathes it. And when some people are in Albany to make a point, and there are a lot of those these days, Governor Hochul is in Albany every single day to make a difference and to deliver on everything that she has promised for our Queens community. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Please welcome to the podium Assemblymember Dan Rosenthal.
As the last speaker, it's customary to go the longest, right? I'm just joking. Thank you, President Wu, for once again opening up Queens College to our community. There has been one consistent headline we've seen over the past several years. Every year we read that hate crimes are at a record high. In 2021, there was a 100% increase in hate crimes in New York. There was an over 300% increase in anti-Asian hate crimes. And there was an over 50% increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes, which were already at record highs. We cannot allow this to be the new normal. I'm going to paraphrase a line from that the Auschwitz Museum says that the Holocaust did not begin at the gates of Auschwitz. It began after years of normalizing hatred. And we cannot allow this to be the new normal. We have seen a lot of leaders give us empty statements and empty words. But Governor Hochul has proven to be a leader of action. In New York State, we got used to people announcing grants and fundings over and over again, the same funding, and never releasing it. This is the second time we have seen Governor Hochul announce funding it and releasing it and making sure that the organizations that need it actually get it. That is a leader of action. When the governor announced that she was going to fix some of our public safety laws in the budget, especially pertaining to hate crimes, she faced an uphill battle, and it was not easy. But she stood her ground, she showed courage, and because of that, we have real substantial change that will make it safer for every community of interest. Whether you are Asian, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Muslim, we are safer because of her leadership. And we thank you so much. We know that every time that there is an incident, you speak up and you act, and we are grateful to have you here once again and to be the governor of New York.